For everything, we are going to start making some gradient plugs. And what I wanted to show you here is you're always told that you cannot make good gradients using complementary colors like violet and yellow, blue and orange, and red and green, because when they start mixing together, you will get one hue or another of matte brown. And that is entirely correct. But what do you do if you absolutely want to have a gradient done with complementary colors? Because let's say you just like violet and yellow and you want to put them together. And I will show you a few tricks here, how you can still get good gradients with beautiful colors even using complementary colors. The first thing to think of, like here I have violet. Yes, my camera always shifts a little bit the violets towards the blue. We have violet and yellow. If I would blend these together, I would get yellow, muddy brownish stuff and violet. So what can I do? One of the tricks, and I'm not going to do that one here because I talked about it before, is to, and remember I was showing you, I will link in the video description, the first part of my mini-series of mokume gane, where I told you how you can get good color combinations just by shifting a little bit when you have the color wheel. And then you have the colors just by shifting a little bit. For example, here, all you have to do is to shift from the yellow towards either a greenish yellow or towards a more orangish yellow. If you do towards the orangish yellow, it's going to still come up brown because there's a lot of blue in this violet. So if you would shift towards a greenish yellow, like a lime yellow, then it would be beautiful. Or you can shift the violet a little bit either towards the blue or towards red. But I'm not going to show you that today. I'm going to show you a different thing. Number one, what I like to do, because it kind of enhances the whole look of the gradient, is to use white and black. Why is that? And of course I'm not going to use it all the way because I don't want them to completely overpower my original colors. But I am going to use just part of them because I want to enhance the beauty of my colors. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to practically insert between the yellow and the violet a color that has a little bit to do with both of them. And that color will act like a buffer so that I will not get all that muddy brown. And let's see, what can we use? Again, this is the Premo. And all the clay has been put through the pasta machine on the thickest setting. And as a little tip, whenever you see in any kind of color recipes, one part of this, half a part of that, 3 parts of that, the best thing is to get all your clay through the pasta machine on the same thickness. And it doesn't really matter which thickness it is, as long as all of it is on the same thickness. And use the same cutter for everything. I personally prefer to use this 1.5 inch square cutter because it's much easier to cut when I need, you know, like half or a quarter part. So I have one part right now, each of all these. What I'm going to do, I'm going to insert alizarin crimson on one of these, and on the other one I'm going to insert fuchsia. Why is that? Because the red in both of them will harmoniously combine with the violet, but it will also harmoniously combine with the yellow. The other thing is, I am not going to use all of it because I don't really want another color in between them. I only want that buffer zone that will make that muddy brown disappear. So you all know my little trick with the squares that I then turn and transform into diamonds, and that is what I'm going to be using here. So I have first my violet square, and I'm going to place it actually like this. And another thing why I like to use the 1.5 square cutter is because when it goes on a diagonal, it is 2 inches. So it's very easy to actually measure the whole stuff. So I am going to put my squares, the violet and the yellow, in a line here. They do touch each other, and that is exactly what I want. But I'm not going to do only that. I'm going first to cut my buffer colors, and I'm going to use only half of these. And then watch this. So I have the violet here. I'm going to go, because I have 2 inches here, I'm going to go 1/4 inch with my yellow into the violet, and then I'm going to place the alizarin crimson right over that area where they are overlapping. And it is going a little bit over that 1/4 inch where they are overlapping. And I'm going to do the same for this one. Now I want that white to get my yellow brighter, but I'm not going to use all of it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to practically get it, and it's easier to do it backwards because you see perfectly where you went. I am going to go with it to the middle, right to the middle here. And then I'm going to cut off pretty much half of it. And I'm going to do the same for this one, but I don't really need to get the other one because I already have it. Or the easiest way would be to simply cut this square like this. I just wanted to give you the visual. I think I had Connor playing on my table last night. I always try to remember to close the door to the studio, but I don't always remember. And then our other thing is with the black. And as I said, I only want 1 shred of black, just for my violet to get dark enough to form a nice edging. So I'm going to cut my square first in half. Then I'm gonna cut the half again in half. Then I'm going to cut the half again in half. So I need 1/8 of an inch for each of them. An easier way, if you have problems cutting like that, an easier way would be to cut it in half like this, then in half like this. Now I have quarters, and then I'm going to grab one of these quarters and I'm going to cut it on a diagonal, and I'm going to place, because remember I want the most color to be at the end, so I'm going to place it with the larger cut, a larger area of exposure at the end. And this is how I'm going to create my Skinner blends. So in order to do a good proper rectangular thing that can be, can go through the machine, I'm going to first slightly flatten them, and then I'm going to cut in half here, and the same here, and then I'm going to lift the half and get it here. As you can see here at the very end, it is a little bit messed up looks because we got this empty space where the black is. So what I'm doing, I'm simply flattening it again, and once again stack it, because now all my empty areas are covered. And the same, let me put this aside, and the same for this one. And yes, during the going through the pasta machine to create your gradient, it will widen out, and when you want to narrow it, all you have to do is to fan fold it. And if you haven't watched my Skinner blend tutorial, I know it's a fairly old one and I fully intend to make a new one, but it still has a lot of tips and tricks. I'm going to link it in the video description below. So I'm doing this again, and now I have my sheet that can go through the pasta machine without a problem. So I am going to make these gradients and I will be right back. So right now I have this, and then I have this. So this one was made with the alizarin crimson wedged between the violet and the yellow, and this one was with the fuchsia wedged between the violet and the yellow. Now I'm going to make a few more elements that will be helpful when I'm creating my cane. And for this, first of all, I made another Skinner blend that is practically 1 part of white and half alizarin crimson. And that means that I got the part of white like this, and then I cut a half of alizarin crimson and I put it on this side. So pretty much it was sitting over this. I cut here, and then I created my Skinner blend. And this one I am going again to make it like I made this one. So I'm going to shut up now and speed this up so you don't get too bored. I'm going to cut it in equal 1-inch segments and then stack them in order. Are you still with me? Okay, now we are going to consolidate this, and that means I'm going to grab my acrylic block and I'm going to press on all sides. And this one I'm going to make it actually flatter, so I can get what I call a Skinner blend sheet. And that is a sheet that has one color on one side, the other color on the other side, and in between it's going to have the gradient. So I am going to flatten it this way more. And if you want to use your roller, the thing that you need to remember is to keep flipping it over, because always whenever you have a stack and you use your roller over it, the top layer will have the tendency to get longer and more squished than the bottom layer. So you want to do a few passes with the roller and then see how it's already wider, and then flip your stack over and make sure it doesn't get widened up on the sides as well. But I am going to have this done, and it's going to be fairly long because I'm planning on using it in 2 different areas of the cane. So I'm going to practically need something that would be twice as long as this, because as you can see I went pretty much with the same. This will be the height of my cane. So I'm going to elongate it until I get twice that height. I'm going to shut up now again and speed up. And I'm pretty much good to go. So let's put this to the side. Now for the next thing, I made here a mix that is a very special mix. What I used 3 parts of white, half part of yellow, and 1/16 of alizarin crimson. This is how you get this beautiful light tan. And when I talk about 1/16, to give you an example, so this is 1/2, right? So what you do is first you find your blade, because as usual the blade has the tendency to kind of hide around. So let's say that I had a full square here, I cut it in half, then the half, I cut it in half again, and now I have a quarter. Then if I cut the quarter in half again, I'm gonna have 1/8. And then if I cut the 1/8 in half again, I'm going to have 1/16. So this is how much alizarin crimson I added to the mix of 3 squares of white and half a square of yellow. So it was cadmium yellow, and this was alizarin crimson. I just showed you on a fuchsia. But what I'm going to do now, if you can see here, I have practically 2 squares of this. And what I'm going to do, I have some black that these are on the thickest setting, and this is on the I just kept rolling it through the machine until I got pretty much approximately the same length as, so I got 1 square on the thickest setting, and I just kept rolling the setting smaller and smaller until I got a piece that was approximately as long as these 2 squares put together. So what I'm going to do now is to kind of get so I can have the proper height, and I am going to get these 2, put them one on top of the other, and get them again through the pasta machine on the thickest setting. Okay, very careful on the thickest setting. It's going to get deformed a bit, of course, but what you want is approximately the same length here. Now my next one, and I'm going to actually extend it a little bit. My next one is going to be, I'm going to take some white, and again I'm going to get it, it's on the thickest setting, and I'm going to get it through the pasta machine again until I get pretty much this length. Just going thinner and thinner until I get pretty much this length. Because, and why I'm telling you this, because yeah, I could tell you I went on a 6 or I went on a 7. We all have different machines. Some of us do have the same machine, but it's easier to figure out what thickness you want like this instead of me telling you a number. So this is pretty much what I want, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to place my yellow, white, and alizarin crimson mix on top of the black, and make sure that I didn't trap any air pockets. And then I am going to get all of this. First of all, let me cut what's obviously extra. And then I'm going to place my white on top of this. So I'm going to have a very thin black, and then a thick mix, and then I'm going to have a thin white. And once again, I'm going to be very careful about getting this without air pockets, and I'm going to leave it aside for now. My next thing will be a striped. I'm going to make a stripe, and once again I am going to get this in half, and then run it again, stack it and run it again through the pasta machine on the thickest setting. And this should be pretty much almost twice the length of 1 square. My next move is to grab a square of the black that I'm going to cut in half, and then excuse me, I'm going to again go thinner and thinner until I obtain a piece that's as long as this one. Oh well, so it's about 1.5. So we're gonna go with 1.5. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to place the yellow on top of the black, and simply trim the excess. So here it's not, you know, set in stone. You just need a much thinner black than your yellow mix. And with this, we are going to make a striped cane. This should be okay, and now I'm going to cut it in half again. Next, I'm going to get another piece of the black on the same thickness I did the black lines here. I'll first cut this in half. So let's get a little bit of dimension here. I have it at 1.5 inches. Pretty much, let's get rid of the squished ends. And then pull a little bit to bring it perfectly to the 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to cut it in half. At the 3/4 of an inch mark. And then I'm going to place this on the black that is on a thin setting. And then grab this and put it together. It is kind of fat right now, but I'm going to reduce it a little bit so I can get it to this height, because that's what I need to do to have it in the proper dimension. So obviously it's going to get a little thinner. And if you want, you can make it even thinner than that. It's up to you how you decide to make it.